So, hi guys,
Hello.
amazing to be here. We're
Yeah.
shooting a video to launch the Business Resilience Index for the first time for 6 Degrees. So, welcome, Mike. Welcome, Rhys. Mike, just what's your take on the release of this index?
I will admit, I raised my eyebrows at a few of the points. Some of the things that I expected to see um, didn't show up, and quite a few things that I was not actually expecting to see were in it. So I found it a very interesting read and also informative with new information.
Fantastic, thanks, Mike. And Rhys, how do you think our customers are going to benefit from this, and our account managers, and also the service delivery managers?
I think it's really going to drive a different level of conversation. Everything that I've seen in there, it speaks volumes about how you should do things. And I think it'll lead to a great deal of different conversations that we've not necessarily had with our customers in the past, better framed and more informative.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say that, whether you are an exec sponsor, and I'm talking to you, the ELT team, whether you're an account manager, whether you're in pre-sales,
Yeah.
whether you're a service delivery manager, anybody that's spending time with clients, this is a fantastic asset to start that conversation and really differentiate 6 Degrees. And if we think about the areas that we know boards are worried about, the index absolutely covers it. So whether it's
Mm.
continuity, whether it's security, efficiency, scalability, and of course, innovation. And I think the really great thing about this report is, yes, there's technology in there, but it's real business issues we're talking about. So it's going to be a fantastic asset for all of the organisation to really differentiate in what's a tough market still.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Agreed.
So let's dive into some of the questions, because we've got some really good insight across a number of different industries. We've got some surprising insight, frankly, I think, across each of them. So we wanted to sort of really pull out what we thought were the most important questions, and just really kind of give our clients a feel for why the other industry leaders and the other people in the index have sort of landed on those key points. So often when leaders talk about resilience, certainly in 2025, it's been in the context of continuity or security. But actually, that's sort of just one lens. I just wonder how limiting you think that could be, Rhys.
Yeah, so the thing with continuity and security is that quite often they're very technically focused.
Yeah.
And business resilience is not just about the technology, it's about the people and the process that wraps around all of those things. So where we saw people score high was if they were thinking about the people and the technology. But quite often we see them limited by those discussions, by those technology discussions, and it just stops that complete visibility of the business resilience.
No, I'd agree with that. And I think, all the way through 2025, we saw a real focus on business resilience, with a lot of legacy businesses, frankly, becoming at risk but because of large sort of cyber issues. But actually, Mike, where else do you think boards and leaders of organizations should be really thinking about when they think about business resilience?
Yeah, I think one thing that jumped out at me and what I hear from other business leaders is what we're doing today clearly is not enough. And I think reframing the discussion around resiliency, and it's more than security, it's more than technology. One of the big takeaways for me was how important it is to embed this within the people and within the culture of the business. And quite frankly, that starts with the board, that starts with senior leaders, understanding that having an IT group who's focused on security, having technology people who work on this day in and day out, it's not enough. We need the entire business to be involved, and this needs to be part of our culture and how we do business in terms of resilience.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with that. And I think giving our clients the tools to be able to have that conversations with their boards are also really, really important. When you think about continuity, though, for business leaders, I mean, do people think about that with a commercial risk angle, or are people still really thinking about it from an operational point of view?
I think what I see is the conversation is beginning to shift. And I think still it typically will start with an operational view, but it's starting to shift and move away from, again, spending money on technology, security, those things. That's good. That's important. However, there's more to it. And so what I see, and quite frankly, the index helped confirm, was that eyes are starting to be opened. We're starting to see that, there is more to it. And unfortunately, it takes some of those negative events that we saw in 2025 to get people to pause and say, wait, there may be a larger way, a different way that I need to be viewing this for my business.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mike. we spent a lot of time with clients. We were with some clients just yesterday. When the pressure really hits organizations that are scaling at pace, do you see that engineered into the systems of the organization, or do you still see a whole sort of heroics with people and pressure and process?
Yeah, I think we're seeing different sides to that. There was a great quote in the report that talked about I can patch servers really well, but I can't patch my culture,
Yeah.
and that's really key because the culture of business resilience going through the business actually helps with that whole environment. The other thing that we find is that organizations that are still stuck with quite a lot of technical debt and legacy, they will struggle to either remain resilient or actually scale their businesses. So those things can suffer depending on where an organization's at in their maturity around their systems, their processes, their culture, and their people.
Yeah, I'd agree with that as well. And I think it's always when the pressure off that the real kind of culture of an organisation comes to the fore. Where do you see the sort of inefficiencies in businesses are quietly eroding when it really comes to business resilience? And what do you think businesses can do about that to make sure they have that consistency of that efficiency even when they're under pressure? Maybe Mike first.
Yeah, I think what often happens is business leaders get caught in this false sense of security. They see a lot of activity. I know I'm spending budget on these things. I see people doing things. I sit in meetings where I get a presentation that shows we were more efficient in this specific team. That's all well and good, but what I see often gets overlooked is broadening that beyond a single team, broadening that across the business, and being able to look at how are we not only getting more efficient team by team, how are we getting more efficient as a business? Because at the end of the day, being strategically resilient as a business requires every team and every part of the organization.
I'll agree with that. Reese, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think one of the other areas to look at as well is automation. Efficiency and automation almost go hand in hand, and I think where organisations are automating and adopting automation as part of their operational processes, be it in the in the IT area or across the business, I think they have much more capability to recover, to be resilient, to adapt to the changes in their marketplace and what they're trying to do. So I think automation really goes hand in hand with that where there's inefficiency and efficiency.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. And I think it leads me really nicely onto the next question because innovation and constantly innovating is always the nirvana for any business, and
Mhm.
it's the lifeblood of many businesses. But how often do you think innovation really survives that pressurized environment, the intensity that so many organizations are actually dealing with at the moment?
I think it's a real struggle for everybody, balancing the drive for innovation and the maintaining the status quo, as it were, is really difficult for every organisation and business leaders across the board. So it does struggle, but at the same time, I think where organisations have made resilience and innovation and efficiency part of their strategy as an organization, they start to overcome those challenges. So it's really about, can you move towards that strategic vision and that strategic incorporation of these methods and capabilities.
Thanks, Reese. I just want to change tack a little bit and maybe to an area that people might think more aligned really to business resilience, and that's security.
Mhm.
So obviously, everyone has a security posture within their own business, but how do you think businesses can really kind of take their approach to security to assure a competitive advantage in the industries they're
Yeah.
working in?
I think it's an interesting area because, as we've seen from the survey, s- security is one of those technologically led or historically technologically led areas. But actually, building a positive security culture into your organization starts to see security as an advantage to the organization. And where we see highly regulated organizations such as financial services, where actually they've had to start to build that in because it's an inherent part of what they do, they're starting to sell on those advantages. We are more secure than the competition. So yeah, that's it's definitely a shift from that perspective.
Yeah, and I think it becomes really, really clear that our clients are looking to leverage that.
Yeah.
And actually, we're seeing many of our clients lean even more heavily into that in the last few months. What about if we think about those sectors, Mike? So we think about the sector specific. What are the barriers that we specifically see, particularly across our strategic industries?
So a few things caught my attention from the index. One, it would be a very rare company that scored at the top strategic resilience across all 5 pillars.
Yeah.
So the 5 pillars are pretty applicable across any sector, any industry. However, every sector has its gotcha. So I'll give you 2 specific quick examples. In our business, we work with a lot of financial services customers. What we see typically very secure, focus on security. However, innovation, driving that typically lags behind. Reason being, once the organization is comfortable, I'm secure, I've got processes that work, they're reluctant to change the way their operating model functions. Contrast that with retail, right? Very quick to innovate, constantly trying new things, constantly fidgeting and working with things. However, getting that new thing to be embedded across the entire organization, very difficult to do. So in one place, innovation is great in a sector. However, getting it spread broadly is the challenge. In the other, very secure environment, changing and bringing in innovation, that's the hard part.
So that I think from an industry point of view is a really good observation. And I think I've just come back from NRF in New York, the National Retailers Federation. The amount of technology and innovation that was on display there was absolutely incredible. But actually, retailers often fail to translate that speed and innovation into sort of real structural sort of scalability and availability. Why do you think that is?
It's a difficult one to pinpoint necessarily, but obviously that speed of innovation drives a lot of activity from a lot of people across the organisation, and I think harmonising all of those people together to understand where the outcome's supposed to be and how we're going to get there is probably the biggest challenge they face. Specifically, in retail, they're changing rapidly to adapt to the market requirements because they're talking to consumers on a daily basis, sort of thing. So it's not like a financial services that's more staid. So they have to innovate to stay ahead of the market, and that needs to be the whole organization working through that innovation, understanding that end goal, and then all driving together for it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's a fascinating industry, but like all individual industries, they have their individual sort of idiosyncrasies. Just coming to you, Mike. So the index is over 600 leaders have inputted into it. But actually, if businesses were to benchmark themselves anonymously today, how likely do you think the outcome of that would actually challenge the view of the board of the stability and the efficiency of the businesses?
I think it would undoubtedly challenge leadership in that. So if you look at the data, it's only 1 in 20. 5% of companies actually are at the top tier in terms of strategic resiliency. That means 95%, the vast majority of companies out there, if they're honest and transparent about it, are not at that level. And so I think that would be surprising to senior leaders, to boards who feel like, hey, I see activity happening. I think we're good and we're comfortable. That's not enough. And so if you look at it, what may work today clearly may not be sufficient for the future. And I think that's where the broader definition of resiliency comes in. It's not about just being prepared today. It's about preparing the organization to react to both opportunities and threats for things that are either unknown today or maybe vaguely known, but may come crystal clear in the next quarter, 2 quarters, 6 quarters from now.
Yeah, so really it's about being honest about where your gaps are and then building a plan to be able to actually address those with this level of reality and pragmatism as well, I guess. So in your view, Mike, just starting with you, what do you think will differentiate the winners in really having a strong business resilience strategy compared to, frankly, the followers in this market?
I think the key piece will be those organizations and those business leaders who are willing to take an honest, candid look at their business and be transparent about here's where we truly are. Sugarcoating it, pretending we're further along than we actually are, that's not going to get you where you need to be. So I think the organizations that prove to be the winners here are the ones that are capable of saying, wait, we're truthfully not where we need to be. How do we now get everyone together across the business, make this an issue, an item that's front and center, and all move forward together? But that starts with being honest with yourself about here's where we are today.
And just a slightly different take on that same question for you, Rhys. If you think about it in the elements of that scalability and the innovation, where do you think the winners are going to really be?
I think it's those that basically use the technologies that are available today to, let's say, move their capabilities forward. So applications being things like cloud native, and being adaptable, scalable, automatically to adapt to what the business requirements are. And then those that adopt things like AI into their businesses, find the right place for it, using the right data, still doing it within the realms of the right governance, I think is really key. But those are the organizations that are truly going to move forward in terms of how they address their market, how they operate as a business themselves, and how they succeed.
So, just thinking about the technology of the moment, what does AI mean for business resilience, and how do you think businesses can kind of balance opportunity and risk, but also retain that competitive advantage through that technology? Maybe Mike, you could answer.
So I think in my role as chief operating officer, I view AI as something we should be using. I can't speak to the intricacies of exactly what it does or how it does it, but I think my point here is that for business leaders like a COO, a CFO, a CEO who aren't in the details of the technology, being conscious that just using AI is one tool out of a very large toolbox when it comes to resiliency. So making sure that we don't get caught in that fallacy of because we're using this, that means it's automatically helping us get more resilient. It may be, however, we need to be cognizant of a much broader and wider perspective when it comes to being truly strategically resilient.
I'd agree with that. And Reece, we've seen a lot of technologies come and go. What's the difference with AI when we think about making businesses more resilient, more scalable, more efficient?
I think it's really about the application of the AI technology within the business around those processes to enable things. So we've seen in our own business, we're starting to see AI creep into the security area, giving us greater visibility or greater insight into the actions that we need to take as a business. And it still needs to be the human in the loop,
Yeah.
but the AI is augmenting the human, and so that drives a better outcome. From a resiliency point of view, we're also seeing AI now drop into operations. So where you've got tasks that are repetitive, traditionally you've not necessarily always been able to automate those. With AI coming into that, it's now being able to do that, but also being able to do it in a more specific way, which drives greater resilience within the business and within the IT infrastructure.
Fantastic. So, guys, we're here talking about the Business Resilience Index that we launched in January, an input from over 600 business leaders. Mike, how do you think we're going to really use this within the fabric of our own organisation to really operationalise it to help us serve our customers better?
I think a little bit of for me personally, taking my own advice
Yeah.
and being able to step back and say, let's take an honest, transparent look at where we are as an organization. And even as I read through the index, things popped into my head. Hey, we're really good at this. We could probably do better at that. So I think that's the starting point for us. The other key thing from my perspective within our business is making sure that everyone within the organization, regardless of their role, regardless of the team they're on, understands the concept. This is something that we will be using to engage with our customers and driving those conversations. So in my opinion, every member of our organization should be familiar with the index, the content in it, and what it means. From that basis, we can get better ourselves as well as foster conversations with our external customers.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And I know obviously Vince has made some commentary already as part of the index, but I challenge Vince, I challenge David, I challenge Tony, all of the ELT, really understanding, why the index is important and how we can help our clients. When I think about how our exec sponsors engage, when I think about how our account managers engage, when I think about our all of those client-facing people, it's a fantastic tool. Rhys, you've got a real advisory part of the organization in pre-sales. So how are we going to operationalize the use of the Business Resilience Index alongside things like the Three Horizon framework that we already use?
Yeah. Well, actually, I think from a Three Horizon perspective, this is absolutely going to play right into that. For me, it's all about the engagement with the customer, and it's about having a relevant conversation with them, which is what we do from our Three Horizons perspective. It's about how do we understand the customer's business? How do we map out technology against the strategies that they're trying to play out? And this only plays to enhance that. So we can frame how we deliver results back to a client from the Three Horizons in this framework. So taking the 5 pillars and playing back against those 5 pillars, which gives it a direct correlation with the Business Resilience Index, and it'll mean they really understand what we're trying to tell them when we deliver back those strategic advisories.
Fantastic. And Mike, how are you directly going to ask your team to use it? I mean, again, the customer success team, service delivery managers, some of the heroes in our business, but how can they use the index?
I think 2 things come to mind. One, this gives us a very concrete basis to go engage in a conversation with a customer. I think where we can offer advice, if you look at the criticality that we play in the role of systems that we support for our customers, we're very important to them. So having the ability to help them understand, here's where you are in the context of strategic resiliency, and focus it in specific pillars, helping them understand really strong in this area. This area you probably need some focus and some attention. Here's how we can help. So I think, again, us understanding the content and using it as the basis, knowing our customers as well as we do, puts us in a unique position to sit down with them and say, hey, let's have an honest conversation about where you are. Let's help understand where you're going with your business, and let's collectively work together to figure out what that means in terms of your technology journey, how we can continue to scale and add services that help you along that journey to strategic resilience.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mike. And Rhys, I'm just going to get sort of quite specific on
Mm.
another really important asset that we launched alongside Fortinet
Yeah.
in December, which was the SASE readiness assessment. We've had a number of customers already go through, fill in that questionnaire as the first step. Again, how do you see the Business Resilience Index lining up with the SASE readiness assessment as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think those 2 assessments, let's say they are complementary to one another. So the SASE assessment looks very specifically at some technology and how you how that builds resilience into your organization. The index is a broader reaching report, but it also brings it back to more of a business level. So I think both are complementary. Both lead to much better conversations with the client. And that's what I'll be saying to my team is you need to understand what's in this report because it's going to drive conversations with the customers and you're going to be the recipient of those conversations. So understanding where the thought process has come from is really important. I think another thing to take from the index as well is over 90% of people that read it learnt something. So this is a leadership piece, and we need to understand as a business that this is a leadership position, and so we should reflect that by understanding what's in the report when we're talking to our customers.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. And I just sort of probably want to close on, we're lucky to spend lots of time with our clients when they're making critical decisions. We spent time with one of our largest clients yesterday afternoon, Rhys, and they've been with us a very long time, but they're a critical decision when they're thinking about what the future of their business looks like and the platform that underpins that business. I just get your reflections on that meeting. How did it feel walking out that meeting where I really felt the client was taking our advice as
Yeah.
opposed to just a proposition from us?
Yeah, I think absolutely, Jeremy. We put something that was not what the client asked for to them, and rather than reject it out of hand, they listened to what we had to say. They challenged what we had to say, but it was very, very clear from the mood in the room that they'd taken us really seriously about what we were saying to them. The fact that we'd linked what we were proposing to deliver back into their business and how their business would operate, and it can only now be enforced further by actually sharing the business resilience index with them, because I think many of the things that we said yesterday to the client about why we'd made decisions about what technology to use, how to implement it, how it impacted their business, how it would support their future of innovation, is reflected directly in the report. So this report will only go to strengthen the conversation that we had yesterday.
And that was a CEO,
Yeah.
CFO, COO conversation. We were not talking infrastructure. We were right at the heart of the business decisioning. So, yeah, I think we have the right for the conversation. I think we have the data points. And frankly, we have the credibility around our portfolio to really kind of deliver a very clear message that how we support clients build on a better outcome so they can grow their businesses as well.
Yeah. So, Jeremy, let me turn it around and ask you a question. You mentioned earlier you were recently at the National Retail Federation, the NRF conference in New York. Curious, in the context of business resiliency as well as specific within retail, what were some of the key takeaways or things that you observed while you were there?
Yeah, it was crazy busy. It's probably my fifth or sixth time I've been to the conference, and it's where all of the retailers come together after their peak season, and they're looking at really what's going to be hot for next year. What are the themes? What are the technologies? So yeah, held in New York. I think I was on the ground about 36 hours, but it was certainly enough time to get a feel for what's going on. Unsurprisingly, AI was right at the forefront. A lot of the great big vendors, the mega brands were there talking about what their solutions were there. But if you drop it down to a bit, that sort of agentic commerce really is the element that I think was the really strong theme that came out. And I guess what I mean by agentic commerce, I mean how agents can help you think about what your natural basket might look like in a supermarket, how an agent might suggest a product for you if you're in a fashion store, how an agent might think about kind of the supply chain or the timing when you're thinking at the back office, and all of that stuff is super interesting. And I think from a software point of view, that connecting the back of the supply chain with the front of the supply chain, which has been a nirvana everyone's been pushing for many years, does feel like it's getting closer, because that linkage between very traditional ERP through to the e-commerce transaction at the front end sort of becomes real when you can start to kind of link that either with human or with an agent in the loop as well. I think the other thing that really struck me was the amount of tech hardware that's coming back. So that in-store experience, and they're calling it phygital. So that physical and digital engagement, and so whether that's point of sale activity, whether that's literally robot agents that can help you in airports or hospitality or in shops, whether that is different ways of checking out, self checkout like we see with some of the Amazon stores, through to kind of walking around your local supermarket with a gun. All of that stuff is moving on with an AI as an underpin. What really struck me though was that all of this is really cool, but if you don't have connectivity and you don't have the workloads working, and you don't have that secure, frankly, all of that stuff is just kind of like fidgets. And I think all of the retail CFOs, COOs, CIOs that I've met over my time, they're really interested in that stuff, but they're also interested, is my store open? Can I transact? Is my point of sale working? Can my customers actually engage with me as a brand? Because people are becoming more and more fickle. And if you can't transact on a website, you'll go somewhere else super quickly. If you go and the doors are shut to the store, you're going to walk two or three lines down. So for me, what we do at 6 Degrees is ensuring that those foundational rails around the connectivity to the stores, the enterprise cloud or the public cloud workload that's supporting the SaaS environments are working. And clearly, as we know from the Business Resilience Index, that security remains a huge element of securing that environment. So, yeah, really cool. Loads of exciting things happening. But what we do is absolutely key to make sure that stores can transact on a daily basis.
I think that's fantastic. And hearing you talk, I share that excitement in terms of that criticality that we play and the role that we play helping our customers' environments and be secure and use this new tech in a safe and secure way. Really interesting for us at 6 Degrees.
Yeah, it's awesome, and no, retail is one of our key industries. We have a lot of very large customers. I think our largest customer hangs 250 branches off the back of our connectivity. We run some key workload for some of the largest organisations. So for us, it's a fundamental part of our strategy as a business, and making sure we can support them going forward it's really exciting, actually.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Jeremy, it's great to hear the innovation that's going on in the retail sector. But how do you think that's going to impact how we deliver service to our retail customers? Are we going to have to gear up in certain ways to allow them to, or enable them to be able to actually take on these technologies?
I think the more versatility and the more usability that you give a customer, or we give our customer's customer, the greater the expectation is.
Yeah.
So actually, if you start to rely upon agentic commerce to help you make decisions, to shortcut decisions, to help you make better decisions, if for some reason that is not there, or that's not working because a workload's not working, or you're reliant on a public cloud where there's an issue, again, that gap between expectation and reality becomes even greater.
Yeah.
And so when I think about where we need to continue to invest in our cloud operations, we need to continue to invest in our connectivity. We need to make sure that our availability and our monitoring continues. That stuff really, really counts, because I think the expectation, not just of people of frankly my age, but my children's ages, and that expectation level is so high. And I think choice is also real.
Yeah.
So, again, making sure that when we say something's going to be available and it can scale and it can manage for peak periods, whether it's Black Friday, whether it's Boxing Day, whether it's any of those peak periods, then we need to make sure that the services we deliver are elastic. Operationally, they scale. We know that they're secure. They can operate across multi-countries. Retail doesn't care whether you're in the UK or the US anymore, right? When you see what's on your Instagram, you have no idea where it's coming to you when you order it. So we really need to make sure that we think about our customer's customer and that experience when we're building our solutions.
That was great insight, Jeremy. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today, guys. Been really good. Looking forward to the output with the rest of the team. And clearly, we're going to make this an annual event. So you'll see a 2027 Business Resilience Index. You'll see a 2028. And we really want to see our clients improve over time, and obviously their businesses be successful because of how we're operating. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.